Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight now. So good to see you on this lunchtime launch opportunity. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. But given the fact that the launch conditions have lined up such that we've got a nice lunchtime liftoff opportunity and the weather seems to be cooperating, went ahead and sent our photographer Adam Bernstein down to Cocoa Beach to give us a nice vantage point of the Falcon 9 rocket once it makes its ascent. So we'll be checking in with the beach cam every now and again, see some folks that are taking full advantage of this good weather, albeit quite a bit of seaweed has washed up on shore, which is not terribly uncharacteristic of some of the beaches along Brevard County. It's a very common sight for those of us who live here on Florida's Space Coast. Right now we're just about 58 minutes away from the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket there at Space Launch Complex 40. On board, 28 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites as part of the Starlink 6-67 mission, which will be flying in a southeasterly trajectory as it places those satellites into low Earth orbit. As we're getting things rolling here on the broadcast, I want to thank the nearly 500 of you who are with us live as we're getting things kicked off here. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button on this video, share the stream, allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. Big thanks to our moderator in the chat. See, we've got Rick Donner holding it down and Callistia Lee as well. If you happen to see any of the other mods in the chat, be sure to give them a big old Spaceflight Now hello. And you can make the moderator's job just a little bit easier by following the rules of the live chat. We ask that you refrain from using all caps. Also withhold delving into overt conversations about politics and religion. Treat each other with respect. And we ask that you converse in English so that our moderators can respond appropriately. We're joined in tracking assistance by our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images, whose camera view you're looking at right now. We'll also be joined by Pete Carsons with Max Q Productions a little bit later on in the broadcast. We've got our photographers out and about getting ready to shoot this Falcon 9 as it makes its ascent. As we just mentioned, our Adam Bernstein has got the very difficult job of hanging out at the beach today, handing our Cocoa Beach cam. John Pisani holding it down here at the press site. And Michael Caine may be in the mix as well. If you're not following the fellas on their handles at X, you can find them here on the screen. Michael is at MD Caine Jr. John is at John Pisani Photo. Adam is at ABurn NYC. While you're on X, if you're not already following us, you can find us simply at Spaceflight Now. And if you're not on that social media, you can also find us on Facebook, Threads, and Blue Sky. Roughly 54 minutes on the clock as the T0 currently stands. Coming into this launch opportunity, the 45th Weather Squadron forecast a far better weather outlook than we've seen for our recent spate of overnight launches. A 95% chance of favorable weather for liftoff with this particular Falcon flight. Only very slight concern for possible violation of the cumulus cloud rule, but take a look back out at the wide shot here. You can see there is nary a cloud in the sky from this vantage point, and just seeing a few light wispy clouds that are hanging out around. If you take a look at our VAB camera view here, you can see that there are just some scattered clouds that are hanging around. As you see, one of the tour buses from the visitor complex cruise by in the foreground, a cement mixer heading in the opposite direction. Lots of things happening on this particular Wednesday, of course. It's been quite some time since we've seen a daytime Starlink launch. Our friend of the channel, John Krause, saying it's been about 6 weeks since we've seen a daytime Starlink launch, so high time got one in the mix. We're continuing as well, as you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, with the mobile launcher number 2, designed to support the larger version of the Space Launch System rocket with the Exploration upper stage. Of course, with the current proposed budget on the table, NASA would be moving away potentially from needing that mobile launcher 2 in the larger SLS rocket, but Congress has yet to fully weigh in on the budget proposal on the table. So until there's a little more surety about that, of course, things will continue to progress with the Artemis program as it's currently laid out until more definitive budgetary direction is defined. With just about 50 minutes on the clock right now. Want to thank our wonderful channel member community for making this live launch opportunity possible. Thanks to folks like M. Teresa, Sulfur for Lunch, Mrs. Ed 3, Glenn A, I Am Lita, Cumulus Granatus, and many others. Dan, Santarciero. Good to see you all today. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Speaking of channel members, want to welcome in our newest member, Karan, joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Also, want to thank L. Ritchie for a $5 super chat, who says, "Clear skies in Orlando. Great day for a day launch." Wholeheartedly agree. And much better for the sleep schedule of all of us here at Spaceflight now. As SpaceX is preparing to count down to the launch of this rocket, with the fueling process starting in just about 10 minutes or so, let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about the countdown timeline for this mission, the nominal series of events that we're looking forward to ahead of a good flight of Falcon 9 rocket. As I was alluding to, SpaceX conducts its readiness poll at about T-minus 38 minutes. If they feel like they're in a good position to do so, because they do this poll electronically, they can take this a little bit early. But all things being equal, once the go-ahead for tanking has been given, the fueling of a Falcon 9 rocket begins at the T-minus 35-minute mark with a loading of RP-1, which is a rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. 30 minutes out, SpaceX will start loading a cryogenic helium on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Same will be true on the second stage a few minutes afterwards. The helium is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes, second stage RP-1 loading wraps up. And at T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds, the strong back chill down process will get underway. That's when SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad, head of second stage liquid oxygen load. We'll see this visually manifest as the so-called big vent at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds here at pad 40. That venting will wrap up at about 30 seconds prior to that second stage LOX load beginning at the 16-minute mark. Rolling right along at T-minus 7 minutes, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines will begin. This process involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps and helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before flight, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence get underway. It's when the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, will recline a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket and stay in that position until liftoff, at which point it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. 3 minutes before flight, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage about a minute afterwards, at which point the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call out that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, currently targeting 12:38 p.m. Eastern, 16:38 UTC for our friends around the world, or just shy of 45 minutes from now. Just about 43 minutes to go before the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Taking a quick peek at the live chat here, I want to thank a few more folks for their support this afternoon, or almost afternoon here on the East Coast, about 5 to the top of the hour. Thanks to Rocket Lady Elizabeth, one of our wonderful channel members, for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm Lita, another one of our channel members with a $5 super chat as well, who says, thank you, Spaceflight Now team. Appreciate all your hard work bringing info and pictures. And a lovely super chat from my mother, joining us from hopefully sunny California on the West Coast. Saying good morning from California, good morning from Florida. As we're getting ready to see this Falcon 9 rocket take flight, let's go ahead and give you a clearer overlook about where it's going to be going once it leaves the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? After ascending from Space Launch Complex 40 there at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, the Falcon 9 rocket will fly in a southeasterly trajectory heading away from Florida's Space Coast. The first stage booster supporting this mission, tail number 1090, will separate from the upper stage and target a touchdown on the drone ship called a shortfall of gravitas. If successful, this will be the 109th booster landing for that particular drone ship and the 447th booster landing to date. The booster taking flight today, B-1090, is lifting off for just the 4th time in its flight career. SpaceX is working to certify both the first stage boosters as well as the payload fairings for up to 40 flights apiece. Most recent update on the fairing front, SpaceX said that they had the first 30th flight of a fairing half so far. Following atmospheric reentry, they will splash down in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean under the support of steerable parachutes. Once down in the water, SpaceX will bring them aboard one of their recovery vessels, bring them back through Port Canaveral on their way to the Hangar X site here at the Kennedy Space Center, where they will be examined, refurbished, and turned around for future missions. Just under 40 minutes to go at this point. We're around 2 minutes out from where the SpaceX launch director should be making a call on the start of prop load for today. We're now at T-minus 37 minutes and counting. At this point, the SpaceX launch director should have made the call on the start of prop load. Tanking of the Falcon 9 rocket set to begin in the next 2 minutes. For those of you who've been with us for a number of recent Starlink launches, you'll be more than familiar with the fact that SpaceX doesn't typically announce the start of fueling its Falcon 9 rockets when it comes to its Starlink missions. So we're typically reliant on visual aids for that. We'll be watching for the frost line to begin to form at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster. A little bit of vapor in that part of the rocket as well, as the super cold densified liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the vehicle. The benefit of a daylight launch, of course, is that we have some good visuals that we haven't seen in some time. The slight downside, though, given the time of year, is also that we've got quite a bit of heat distortion between us and the rocket as it sits there on the pads. So discerning the start of tanking is going to be just a little bit trickier today. But now we're 35 minutes, so barring any adjustment that SpaceX may have made as I was talking, the vehicle should now be in the fueling process. Actually get a little bit less heat distortion when looking at this vantage point from our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. I think there may be a little less heat coming off of the water as opposed to the land in between us and the rocket from the press site vantage point. Speaking of beating the heat, we're looking forward to checking back in with our Adam Bernstein when the Falcon 9 rocket does take flight, as it should be a pretty spectacular liftoff for all those beachgoers there along Florida's Space Coast. Looking at the vantage point from Cocoa Beach right now. You can see the Cocoa Beach Pier just off to the left-hand side in the upper third of the frame. Just about 33 and a half minutes to go before liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. In the next minute or so, we should be able to, well, under slightly different circumstances, we would be able to more clearly see the start of fueling. We're going to be taking a closer look at the Falcon 9 booster here in just a moment, just making a couple of camera adjustments. Little hard to discern here, again, because of the amount of heat distortion, but it does appear as though we're starting to see that frost line form near the base of the first stage booster, which would indicate that SpaceX is now tanking its Falcon 9 rocket and locking into the current T0 liftoff time of 12:38 p.m. Eastern, 16:38 UTC. With less than 30 minutes to go, for those of you who may just be joining us now, you're watching live coverage from Spaceflight now of the Starlink 6-67 mission getting ready to lift off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and fly in a southeasterly trajectory. Seeing the vantage point of the rocket from our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs. A little bit of vapor there as tanking of this rocket continues. Taking a look at our live chat. First off, I want to thank the 2,000 plus of you who are with us right now for this lunchtime launch. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button. Allow some more folks to find their way into this live coverage as we cruise on through the countdown. I also want to welcome in a few new channel members. Welcome aboard to Cheetah Pilot, L. Ritchie, and Gpan Gigi, all joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. And want to thank pre-existing channel member Joni Mahoney, marking 5 months with us now at the mission specialist level. Really appreciate that support, Joni. Glad to have you still with us. On board this particular Falcon 9 rocket are a series of 28 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites. Today's launch will be the 41st flight with Starlink satellites as the primary payload. The 40th dedicated mission for Starlinks this year as well. We make that distinction since the Starlink 13-3 mission did carry a couple of Starshield satellites as a rideshare. These optimized V2 minis are considerably lighter than the previous Starlink optimized satellite, about 500 pounds lighter. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They will use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. They were built in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. They'll be deployed at about 180 miles or 291 kilometers in altitude at a 43-degree inclination. The Falcon 9 first stage booster that's launching today making just its fourth flight so far since its initial debut. So let's take a moment to step through the flight history of B-1090, which began its flight career back on December 17th of last year, launching a pair of O3B power satellites, numbers 7 and 8, on behalf of one of SpaceX's longest-standing customers, SES. Its next flight, also from Pad 39A, with a landing back at LZ-1 or Landing Zone 1, was in support of NASA's Crew 10 mission, sending Commander and NASA astronaut Anne McClain and her 3 crew members on their way to the International Space Station. Currently still docked aboard the orbiting outpost, where they're conducting a whole host of science and technology demonstrations and work. Launch of the Dragon Endurance happened back on March 14th. Most recently, this booster supported a rideshare mission called Bandwagon 3. This was a mid-inclination flight, the third in the Bandwagon series, adding to the numerous transporter missions that SpaceX has also flown as part of its small-sat rideshare program. And of course, coming up here in just about 25 minutes will be Starlink 6-67. You can see the booster turnaround time for this particular Falcon 9 first stage continues to decrease as SpaceX works to increase its flight cadence for its Falcon family of rockets. Just under 24 minutes to go. Taking a quick peek at what's going on down at Starbase in southern Texas. You can see Booster 14 there at the orbital launch mount at Pad A. SpaceX is getting ready for Flight 9, which at this point in time does not have a planned launch date, though there are some marine and aviator warnings that suggests it could be as soon as next week, although SpaceX has not yet announced a launch date. The FAA also has not said that there has been a resolution to the mishap investigation that happened during Flight 8. 2 paths to flight for SpaceX are either 1, getting a resolution to the mishap investigation and having that buttoned up, or 2, the option that they used to get from Flight 7 to Flight 8 while the Flight 7 mishap investigation was still in work. They could get a public safety determination from the Federal Aviation Administration, essentially saying that they understand enough about what happened and have a plan that is accepted by the FAA that would allow them to move forward with that mission. That was the rationale used for Flight 8. We'll see which path they ultimately end up going with for Flight 9. Though a bit of a reporting update from our friend Marcia Smith over at Space Policy Online. Great publication that focuses on the policy and politics surrounding space and spaceflight. Noted that SpaceX at this point has not submitted their investigation report to the FAA, That is according to the FAA, speaking with Marcia at Space Policy Online. "21 minutes, 20 seconds on the clock, and we are coming right up to the point at which SpaceX will conduct the chill down of the strong back there, the feed lines, in preparation for a second stage liquid oxygen load. That process will begin at about T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds. We'll see it manifest visually as the so-called big vent at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. Timing of the vent is a good visual indication that our countdown clock is in fact correct and that tanking of the vehicle is moving along as anticipated. And you see the start of the big vent here from the camera perspective of our friends Chuck and Jim Briggs with C&J Images. With the wind direction coming nearly directly at us here at the press site, slightly off to the south. So wind direction blowing south-southwest by the look of it. Or west-southwest, I suppose. Again, this venting will last until about T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds, preparing for second stage liquid oxygen load. As we're getting ready to see the tapering off of the big vent, want to thank a few folks in the live chat for your support today. Big thanks to our Spaceflight Now moderator and channel member, Clistia Lee, for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that generosity, Clistia. And to our 5 newest gifted channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. And a welcome aboard as well to Charles Baxter, joining us with membership at the pad leader level. Michael Big Mike Maxey, been a member with us now for a month at the pad leader level. Always good to see those 1 month milestones. Mike says, have a great launch, SpaceX and Spaceflight now. Just under 16 minutes. Second stage liquid oxygen load is now getting underway. Also want to thank Gregory Lewis for a $10 super chat, as well as Don Flea. Big thanks to Aster for a $100 super chat. Really appreciate such a generous super chat, Aster. Thank you so much for your support at that level, man. And Aster says, thanks again for streaming another launch. Very welcome, and thank you so much for your support of our mission. Just under 15 minutes to go at this point in the count. Let's go ahead and take a moment and talk about the launch timeline. This is what we are anticipating with a nominal flight of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 6-67 mission. Following the liftoff of the vehicle, it will pass through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the rocket, about a minute 11 seconds after liftoff. SpaceX will then thermally condition the MVac engine, or the Merlin vacuum engine, on the second stage about a minute 45 into flight, and then we'll hit a few events in fairly rapid succession at that point. We'll have first stage main engine cutoff for T plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds. That'll be followed about 3 seconds afterwards by stage separation, and then the ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage at about a little more than 2.5 minutes post liftoff. The payload fairings at the top of the rocket stack will be deployed just before the 3-minute mark. Fast forward about 3 minutes after that, the first stage entry burn will begin. That burn lasting about 24 seconds in total, using 3 out of the 9 engines on the booster to help slow that stage down and set up the start of the landing burn to begin at about T plus 7 minutes and 49 seconds. That single engine burn will cushion the landing of B-1090, set to touch down on the drone ship, a short fall of gravitas, about T plus 8 minutes and 13 seconds after liftoff. That'll be followed by the conclusion of the second stage engine burn, otherwise referred to as SECO 1. Following a coast stage of the mission, there will be a brief 1-second burn of the upper stage engine that will help circularize the upper stage in order to place the 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites into their correct orbit. Starlink deployment set for T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 16 seconds. As we're getting ready to see the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket coming up here in just about 12 minutes, let's go ahead and take a moment and talk about the workhorse vehicle for SpaceX. The Falcon 9 rocket, which stands at 70 meters or 229 feet in height, has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Let's mix things up a little bit, start at the top of the rocket this time and work our way down. The payload fairings are what are currently encapsulating the 28 Starlink satellites. Fairings are Made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height, or 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Following fairing separation, they will splash down in the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, where they will be scooped up by a recovery vessel, brought back into port, and turned around for future flights. Just beneath the payload fairing is the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket. This is powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVac engine, equipped with a large nozzle which is optimized for burns to the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 28 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The upper stage engine burns a combination of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene, as well as liquid oxygen as the oxidizer. Following the deployment of the Starlink satellites, it will ignite for a third time to perform a deorbit burn to help eliminate the risk of creating unnecessary space debris on this mission. Moving on down, that upper stage engine nozzle is housed inside the inner stage adapter. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core which is surrounded by carbon fiber. As you can see, as we hit the 10-minute mark before flight, the inner stage is also where the hypersonic grid fins can be found. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches which attach to the vehicle's second stage. And at main stage, or at MECO, main engine cutoff, high pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation of the first and second stages. And of course, what kicks things off at liftoff, and see that in just about 9 minutes, the ignition of the booster stage, bottom 2/3 of the rocket. Again, you're looking at B-1090, which is set to make its 4th trip to space and back. Like the second stage, the first stage also burns a combination of LOX and RP-1 and produces 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship, a short fall of gravitas. Quite a bit of bird chatter that you're hearing there in the background. Of course, Florida's launch pads are intermixed around the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, so see quite a bit of wildlife around here, whether it be gopher tortoises and occasional bobcats and bald eagles, a whole host of other animals and other avian friends that are in the mix. Just about 8 minutes before liftoff, coming up in the next minute, will be the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the booster. Taking one more look back at our Cocoa Beach camp before a liftoff. Got a few more folks out there Going to see a nice flight of the Falcon 9 rocket coming up here in about 6.5 minutes. Our Adam Bernstein is down manning the beach camera. Appreciate him making the trek down there, and he's got the hard job today of being at the beach for us. So we're just about 6 minutes before the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Just under 6 minutes to go. At this point, the first stage kerosene tank should be full.
I'm back, Reach.
T-minus 3 minutes, 43 seconds and counting as SpaceX is progressing towards the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. Seeing a little bit more cloud cover rolling on in from the west. Still shouldn't be an impediment to liftoff, though. SpaceX is preparing for the flight of this rocket coming up here in now just about 3 minutes. Now 3 minutes and counting. The first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Just a quick bit of housekeeping here. You'll notice our countdown clock is slightly ahead of SpaceX. Reason being our clock is in real time. What's coming from SpaceX is on a slight delay. So as long as we have our tracking camera views of the rocket,
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
We'll be making our callouts based on real-time events. As just heard, though, Stage 1 liquid oxygen load is complete. Same will be true on the second stage coming up here in the next few seconds. Be a little after that when we hear the SpaceX call out for that event. Less than 2 minutes to go before flight.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
Good call there. Falcon 9 now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. That venting you're seeing are the ground gas closeouts. T-minus 1 minute and counting. The SpaceX stream has been having some issues, so
Falcon 9 is in startup.
that's why you're hearing callouts coming a little bit later as compared to when we were normally hearing them. Coming up on 30 seconds now, we should be hearing the SpaceX launch director give the go for launch.
LD, go for launch.
Got that confirmation there. Coming up on 20 seconds before flight.
T-minus 30 seconds.
15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter
15
ignition.
seconds.
And liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 6-67 mission. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Now a little more than a minute into the flight of the Falcon 9 rocket. Nominal trajectory at this point in the mission. Falcon 9 about to pass through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Some great tracking views from our team today.
Max Q.
Coming up on a few different events in fairly rapid succession now.
Back chill has started.
We'll have first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds. That'll be followed by stage separation about 3 seconds afterwards. And then second stage engine start, SES-1, about T plus 2 minutes and 36 seconds, with the payloads, the fairings separating just before the 3-minute mark. About 10 seconds to MECO. Here you've got MECO. Stage separation and second stage engine start.
Main engine cut off.
Stage separation confirmed.
Good callouts from SpaceX, good visuals.
Back startup.
Now 3 minutes into flight, the payload fairings have separated. You just barely see them glinting
Fairing separation confirmed.
against the sun there in our tracking camera view. good onboard camera views as well. You can see one of those fairing halves falling back down towards the Atlantic Ocean. A little more than 3.5 minutes into flight now at this point.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Coming up on 4 minutes into flight. Just about 2 minutes away in real time from the start of the first stage entry burn beginning. It's when SpaceX will use 3 out of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster to begin to dramatically slow that stage of the vehicle down. Falcon booster has passed its apogee in this mission today, reaching a peak altitude of 115 kilometers. Coming up on 6 minutes into flight now, the first stage entry burn about to begin in real time. Although given the brightness and the amount of clouds that are hanging around at this point, it's going to be long odds for our tracking cameras to be able to capture that, but we're scanning the skies at the moment.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And the entry burn is concluded in real time. Still seeing that from the SpaceX camera, though, on a slight delay.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown. Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
Good call-outs there from SpaceX. The flight termination system on the second stage has been safed. A little more than 7 minutes into flight now in real time. Just crossing that 7-minute mark from the SpaceX point of view. Just about 30 seconds away from the start of the landing burn from the SpaceX camera perspective.
Stage 1 transonic.
Booster now traveling below the speed of sound.
Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 2 terminal guidance. Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And for a fourth time, B-1090 has safely made it for a good touchdown.
MVAC shut down.
Call out for MVAC shutdown. Didn't hear the call for nominal parking orbit, but assuming that milestone was reached, that upper stage, the Falcon 9 rocket, will continue to cruise until T plus 54 minutes and 8 seconds post liftoff. There will be a brief 1-second burn to help circularize the upper stage. And then the Starlink satellites will be deployed at T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 16 seconds post liftoff. As we are getting our launch replay system up and ready to go, want to first off thank Brenda Bauer for joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. And let's go ahead and check in with our mission stats as they currently stand as we're getting those replays ready for you. With a good liftoff and landing of the booster, that marked flight number 4 now in the books for tail number 1090 in the SpaceX fleet. This mission was SpaceX's 475th Falcon 9 launch to date, their 58th of the year so far. This is also SpaceX's 415th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was the company's 142nd orbital launch within the last 365 days. The 251st for SpaceX from its workhorse pad of Slick 40, and the 206th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Taking a look at the bar chart representation of the Falcon family of rockets year over year. Moving on to some recovery stats with a good touchdown on the drone ship. That marked the 109th successful booster landing using the drone ship a short fall of gravitas. With the other two in the mix, that was SpaceX's 358th drone ship landing so far, and the 447th overall booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 42nd orbital launch from Florida so far this year, the 62nd from U.S. soil, the 67th from a U.S. rocket company, including the 5 from down in New Zealand, courtesy of Rocket Lab. And this was the 102nd orbital launch attempt around the globe. 2 orbital launch failures on the year so far, and here's where our pie chart currently stands. Speaking of orbital launches that we are anticipating coming up here, potentially as soon as later today, we're watching for updates from Gilmore Space as the launch window has opened for their test flight 1. This would be the first launch of their Ares rocket, the first orbital class rocket that would be built and launched from Australian soil. They noted earlier in the week that they were on target for their launch window to open up no earlier than May 15th, which factoring in the time difference, the window would open up at 7:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is 5:30 p.m. Eastern for us here today. So we'll be watching closely for updates from those folks down in Australia, although they did note that they have no intention of live streaming this first test flight. So we'll all be waiting eagerly for updates from the company to see A, if they are progressing into the actual launch attempt, and B, if they are and do, how successful that first outing might be. Also want to thank El Richie, one of our channel members, for a $10 super chat. Thank you, Richie, who says, thanks for the coverage. Was a beauty out here inland. Just about ready with those launch replays for you folks. Coming up next here in California is our next planned Falcon 9 launch, I believe. Coming up on the 16th with a departure window opening at 6 a.m. Pacific Time, 9 a.m. Eastern, 1300 UTC. That would be the Starlink 15-5 mission. And you can head over to our website anytime you like, spaceflightnow.com. And there you'll find our launch schedule. Just click on the Launch Schedule tab. And we do have those replays ready for you, so let's go ahead and get that queued up, starting with a look at the press site camera as set by John Pisani. This is the fixed view of the flight of Starlink 6-67. Is a look at our beach cam that Adam Bernstein was manning down at Cocoa Beach. Moving on to our tracker camera manned by John Pisani today. Take a look at the Merritt Island tracker from our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. And with those replays now behind us, that'll go ahead and wrap things up for us here at Spaceflight Now for today's coverage. Want to give one last thank you to channel member Chuck Close for a very generous $25 super chat. Really appreciate that, Chuck. Good to see you this afternoon. Thanks for your continuous support of what we do at Spaceflight Now. Want to thank our photography team of, first off, our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images, as well as Pete Carstens with Max Q Productions. Thanks as well to our photography team around the horn, to John, Michael, and Adam. You can find them at their handles here on X if you're not already following the fellas. Thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who is running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Big thanks as well to our moderators in the live chat who've been helping us out. Thanks to Rick Donner as well as Callistia Lee. Most importantly, we want to thank you for wherever you have been watching from this afternoon. Appreciate you stopping by, hanging out with us here at Spaceflight Now, and we look forward to welcoming you back in whenever SpaceX is ready to launch again, or any of the other orbital launch providers around the globe. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.